Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the latest Service Department News webinar. Today, we are going to be talking to the new kids on the block, people who have launched new brands in the extended stay, service department and apart hotel space. My name is George Sell. I'm editor of Service Department News, and we are a multimedia platform for the sector. And as well as these webinars, we run an awards scheme, we have podcasts and video interviews. So these Service Department News webinars have a couple of sponsors, and we're just going to quickly find out some more about them. And the first one is IMS. Okay, so thanks to IMS, and if you'd like to find out more about those guys, you can see their contact information in the chat. And our second sponsor today is Corporate Housing Factory.
We are Corporate Housing Factory, your go-to company for booking temporary and extended stays in the Netherlands. Let me tell you what we do. We have about 200 service departments in the Netherlands in all major cities. Big, small, luxurious, minimalistic, modern and cosy. Our apartments are always fully furnished, weekly cleaned, provided with super speed internet, and we can offer an airport pick-up or drop-off too. Now, tell us what type of apartment you're looking for.
All right, thanks to Corporate Housing Factory, and again, their contact details are in the chat. So today's webinar is going to last an hour. We're going to have around 45 to 50 minutes of discussion with the panel. We'd like to make it as interactive as we can. So if you do have any questions, please do submit them using the chat or the Q&A function in Zoom. A recording of the session will be made available and sent to everybody by email in a couple of days' time. A couple of screen grabs here just to show a flavour of the kind of companies that we're going to be talking to today. I just think these four brands between them show just how diverse and varied the sector has become. And I'm really interested to find out more about all the four brands that we're talking to today. So let's ask our panelists to introduce themselves quickly one by one. We'll go from left to right as we see them on the screen. So first of all, Ed, good afternoon to you, or should I say good morning to you?
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Ed, do you just want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll go on to talk in more detail.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot. So I originally studied engineering at MIT, and I mentioned that because that's where I met my co-founder. And even back then, we were providing furnished housing to people in our living group on campus and whatnot. And a few years back, we started working on a business that was catering to remote workers. And while doing this, we saw that there weren't a lot of great options for medium and longer term furnished housing. And that's essentially what led us to Snapstays. I'll go into it more a bit later, I think, but from a high level, essentially we're a platform for medium and long-term furnished rentals, typically 3 to 12 months. But love to dive in more in a bit. Thanks.
Thanks, Ed. Good to have you here. Niko, welcome to you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. And as George mentioned, my name is Niko, co-founder and CEO at Bob W. Bob W is a hybrid of the best of the hotel experience and the best of the short stay or Airbnb type experience, packaged up into this affordable luxury brand called Bob W. And under the hood, we've built technology that the whole thing runs on automation with a fraction of the people, but actually it elevates the expectation of what a hospitality experience can be. Built for the affordable luxury segment. Today, we are a tech company. We consider ourselves a tech company that operates hospitality. We operate in 5 countries: Finland, Norway, Estonia, Spain, and UK, with planned expansion to 21 cities across European Union, and really setting to create the new standard of hospitality for this sector. So that's Bob W.
Thanks, Niko, and we'll find out more about that in due course. Next, we come to Martin. Good afternoon to you, Martin.
Good afternoon.
Martin, tell us briefly about what you do at an Aptel, without giving too much away, which we'll go into later.
Sure. My background is firmly in the hospitality sector. I was born into it. My parents were in the business, so it's something which is naturally in my blood. Through a later career, got into development, hospitality development in the main, which then led into the operational side of each of the assets we developed. And through the journey, just looked at the best bits. And as Niko just described, just looking at the best of what a hotel could offer to what the best of what a kind of an apartment could offer. And really that's where Aptel was born.
Excellent. Thanks, Martin. And our last panelist today is Chris. Welcome to you, Chris.
Thanks, George. Great to be on air. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. I'm the Area Commercial Director for Dorset Hospitality International. Bit about me. I've been in hospitality for quite a few years, been in quite a few different markets. You can probably tell from the accent, not originally from London. Been in the Middle East and over in North America with Marriott in a past life. But with Dorset, what we're doing, it's a unique company and a unique, very fast growing brand out of Hong Kong. What makes us a bit different is that we're a developer, owner, and a management company, not just a management company. So all the buildings that we do manage, we actually own and have created ourselves. We're up to about 60 properties internationally, manage 4 brands, and very excited to be getting into the aparthotel and service apartment sector.
Thanks, Chris. Let's stick with you for a second then, and talk about the new DAO brand. So what does the brand offer? And why has it been launched? And more specifically, why has it been launched at this particular rather tumultuous moment in time?
Yeah, the DAO by Dorset brand is our newest brand, and it's an aparthotel brand that we actually launched just this past July. So it's still a very new kind of brand in the market. DAO essentially comes from the Chinese Taoist way of it actually means the way, and it's the way one lives kind of in harmony with themselves. So by calling the brand DAO, we essentially believe in kind of living your way anywhere, for our guests to have that kind of custom fit approach to kind of living how they want in different locations around the world. So before COVID, and it's funny how we use COVID almost as an indicator in time for the way the world changed. Before COVID, obviously, we were actually exploring this concept because service departments, aparthotels, the rise of Airbnb, years before that, gave hoteliers and the industry, a bit of a kind of wake-up call to say, you know what, you can't just be focused in one aspect of what you do. We have to look at different facets of that, and being, flexible, different products, kind of how we can adapt to changing consumer trends, was a key part of that. And fast forward to COVID and post-COVID, the way people have traveled and travel trends has changed massively. During COVID, obviously everyone wanted to be in a bit of a bubble. So service departments did actually, much better than hotels. And we see post-COVID, obviously people choosing to travel in different ways, stay for longer periods. They want more space, even on business trips, they're bringing their families. They want that flexibility with their stays, which sometimes differs a bit from hotels. So that's the main reason why we decided to launch DAO.
Yeah, okay. And aside from the obvious in terms of the self-contained nature of the units, would we notice a significant difference between a DAO room and specification and a Dorset hotel one? Is it clearly demarcated?
It is. So our first location we launched in London. We had the luxury of launching it next to our Dorset Shepherd's Bush Hotel. So of course, from an operations perspective, it's great for us because we had shared resources. We launched our second location in Singapore shortly thereafter, only about a few weeks thereafter. But we do have in our location here in London, it's two very distinct different brands. It is a shared lobby space when you come in, but the overall experience is different. The product with a Dorset, obviously it caters much more to kind of the short stay. With our product, DAO by Dorset, we market it as an apart hotel, where people do get all the benefits of having, obviously, your own kitchenette, your own larger self-contained space, but the benefit of the hotel facilities as well, and the hotel resources. So your 24-hour concierge, you have access to the hotel facilities, the F&B downstairs. So it's almost a mix of the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the various properties in these different diverse locations around the world, is there a clearly identifiable brand concept? So for example, would an apartment at Shepherd's Bush look similar to one in Singapore, or do they draw a lot from their locations in how they're designed and how they look?
Yeah, it's a great question, George. So what we've tried to do is have some standard brand elements to it. So in terms of the brand fundamentals and pillars, we have three primary pillars that anywhere in the world you go to a DAO by Dorset, you'll encounter those brand pillars: custom fit, harmonious, and we have social. Social is a key element to it, that because what we found with when Airbnb launched, there was a lot of studies saying where guests tried Airbnb and the self-contained units, but they then missed a bit of that social element that hotels had. So for us, mixing the both was very, very important. So when I say social in these brand pillars, kind of what does that mean? Well, for us, we do certain things like event community programming. We call the people in-house our community, residents community. We really try and engage them, that we appreciate that they're staying for a little bit longer than normal hotel guests, that how do we make that comfortable for them? We offer, as part of the custom fit brand pillar, something called DAO Journeys. In the DAO Journeys, there's different things in there, such as Move Your Way, which is a wellness fitness focus, where people can request, a Peloton bike in the room. There's different fitness focused themes that they can have. There's a family adventure pack that focuses on, if you're traveling with your family, kind of what that then gives you per location. So then we start to look at then each location and bringing in those unique elements of each location. So then your custom fit family adventure is the same kind of throughout, but what makes up each of those packs is then different. So for example, in Shepherd's Bush here in West London, you then have access, say, to Kidzania, whereas in Singapore, it may be something else. And that very much where we try and incorporate a bit of each of the locations into our offering to make it that unique custom fit, but still having that brand standard in place.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Chris. Ed, can you tell us a bit more in detail? You kind of touched on how and why you launched Snapstays, but can you go into a bit more detail about that and where you're at now?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks a lot. So like I said, we're a platform for medium and longer term furnished rentals, typically 3 to 12 months. But a key to our model is we essentially take any unfurnished apartment and furnish it on demand. And so what I mean by that is we aggregate data on unfurnished apartments that are coming available, and we combine that with data on the costs to furnish the place and so on. And by doing this, the key is that we're opening up this market of unfurnished rentals, so unfurnished apartments and so on, for the market of people looking for a furnished rental. And so taking the US as an example, so the US is our focus market today, there are millions of apartments that are unfurnished across the US. And at any given time, there are many of them that are sitting vacant or about to come available. And so we take those, and then our goal is to be able to open up all of those to the market of people who are looking for medium and longer term furnished rentals. And so today we're in, our services we offer, we're able to offer across dozens of states, coast to coast, probably around 100 cities, although we're focused on about a dozen core markets today. And we've hosted customers who work at places anywhere from like Amazon and Oracle to sort of construction companies, traveling nurses, people with problems in their home or buying a new home and things like that and need temporary housing. So there's sort of a wide range of customers. And then ultimately want to be able to expand across the US and ultimately globally.
Mm-hmm. And is there a minimum number of units that you would take in a building to make your model viable? Or do you take whole buildings or a floor of a building, or what's the kind of scale involved?
Yeah, so it's actually, the model works a bit differently where we're not sort of pre-committing to a certain number of units. Essentially, we're more like a data aggregator and then able to open up the inventory as the demand comes in. And so when we work with a property, essentially, we can take the data on all of their units that are coming available and their pricing and so on. And then whether a company or an individual wants to book one unit or they want to book, a whole bunch of units over the course of the year, we're essentially helping the property add access a new customer set and increase their utilization of their excess inventory.
Thanks, Ed. Martin, Aptel has the one property now, a kind of you've got a flag in the sand, your first venture into the apart hotel sector. Do you want to tell us about how that came about?
Yeah, as you say, we have one trading property. We opened last October, so we've had our 12-month anniversary this month, in fact last week. It came about really looking at the actual properties that were in a portfolio. We are traditionally a hotel developer, and taking as I mentioned earlier in the introduction, the components of kind of what we consider to be the best parts of both, i.e. the service level of a hotel. So that was important to us when considering the concept, and then the independence of an apartment. So we kind of drew upon those two and set about designing, it's a ground up new development, purpose built, really utilizing technology, considering how the guest uses the space. You can interface with the guest service team, or you can use your phone in terms of mobile smart door access. So that accesses the building, it accesses the reception area, it accesses the lift, it accesses your room. So in a sense, someone mentioned COVID previously, but we've kind of created this ability for a guest to really take the experiences how they want to see the journey. If they want more involvement with the guest service team, they can. If they simply want to use it as an independent apartment as such, then they can deliver that. We can deliver that function as well. So it's really looking at the efficiency of the building We do have some smaller units. So again, it's about how you design a space to work in a smaller unit. And we feel we've actually done that well. Our smallest room is 18.5 square meters. So, you know, as a kind of micro unit, that is on the smaller side. You know, we've put everything in there you'd expect in terms of the quality of the bed, you know, what you have in terms of the kitchenette and the facilities. So it still has all of the benefits of an apart hotel, but in a smaller room.
Yeah. And why did you decide to develop and operate the project yourself rather than appointing one of the brands that are already out there?
I've worked with lots of brands, and we considered London. You know, we had an opportunity. It's one of those markets from a standing start. You know, it's a new brand. No market knowledge, no intel. We've grown over that 12-month period. We're now hitting about 85% occupancy, and our rates stabilizing at around £150 achieved. So, you know, for me, I considered, would we do anything different, or would we achieve a higher level with a brand? I don't think we would. And that, you know, in the sense of what we were trying to achieve with Aptel as a function. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Martin. Niko, you're probably slightly further along the road in terms of you know, how long you've been established and the number of properties that you've got. Do you want to kind of tell us about the journey to date before we look too far ahead into the future?
Yeah, I guess, you know, my background's in tech. So I'm a tech entrepreneur for 12 or 13 years now. One exit under the belt around fitness activities marketplace on iPhone and Android. And so we took a very different view on this before the pandemic we got started. And again, same ethos, which I believe big reason why we're all here is we're recognizing that the use cases and the modern traveler has a broader swath of use cases that they need to travel, and their needs are changing as we go along. And simply to put it, the old hotel model is only one solution to a variety of different problems that the hotel doesn't cater to. So we kind of started first with individual apartments because in Helsinki, Finland, because, well, nobody would give us a big building because they're like, oh, look at these kids. And then sort of half randomly, we found a property in Tallinn through some of my sort of tech entrepreneur network randomly. And so we managed to operate the first building, and quite quickly were able to ramp that up and get it through the rankings as #1 property in Tallinn, as well as also from a very profitability perspective. And we started building our own tech because that's the background where we're coming from, where we are recognizing that you could put the whole thing on your head and create an amazing empathetic experience for customers. On the one hand, automating the operations in a building by empowering the cleaners using our apps and interactive to-do lists and photo validations, etc. And on the one hand, creating a 10 times better user experience by just cutting down the extra steps, as well as solving for some of the biggest customer problems on the market. So for example, we built the algorithm, algorithmically placed a guaranteed early check-in, late checkout, first in the market. So basically we figured out, because our customers tell us when they leave and when they come, and our technology then make sure, as we have our own IoT devices, ensures that we know that they've actually left the building or that they haven't arrived yet, where we can guarantee you an early check-in, late checkout, either for free for loyalty members, etc., or to monetize it on that front. And just that is, by the way, one of the largest requests in the entire hospitality space: early check-in, late checkout. It's one of the most universal needs that we have, and yet nobody's actually tried to fix that, because there's this thinking that, oh, hey, people are supposed to leave at 11 and come at 3. Because that's how it's always been. And then so we really took this reapproach as we get rid of the sort of the horse flaps of what a hotel should or shouldn't be, and just say, okay, here's our customer. What are the problems that that we can solve for them. So we took that approach, started building the tech, and started applying it to this first building. And then the pandemic hit right when we were opening up a second building as well in Helsinki. Turns out that we were very, very resilient. And not only that, but we were able to find new use cases and new customer areas and different use cases for those to fill up the buildings. And then we attracted venture cap funding to the tune of 10 million euros, which we then expanded to the 5 countries or 7 cities that I referred to earlier. Further developed the tech, and now we're at the position we've got over 20 cities secured in Europe, and I can't tell you guys just yet. There's a massive announcement in terms of additional fundraising resources that we'll be able to publicize very shortly in the near future. So that's basically how we've gotten to this journey today. And I think if there were the one thing that I'm most proud of is that whilst we operate 16 properties in these countries, we're actually average 4.8 out of 5 public customer satisfaction average. Our NPS score is 90 since inception. Remember, a lot of the buildings are still in ramp up. We have very healthy double-digit margins. Again, remembering that the building's still in ramp up modes, and we are number 1 in TripAdvisor Tallinn, number 1 in TripAdvisor Helsinki, number 2 in TripAdvisor in Madrid, etc. So it's not specifically people, but it's technology being able to create this fantastic experience that turns out to be, personalized. And it's also very empathetic, as we've built Bob as the best host ever, as the epitome of the avatar of the perfect host, and built the service around it. So it turns out it can be empathetic, even if you don't meet the people there. And that's something we're extremely proud of. And something I think that the modern generation recognizes, who've done enough Airbnbs to know that some of the best hosts they never met. And they're able to do that at scale.
So the technology is at the core of it, Niko, and you've grown fast and you're in a lot of different locations now. What are the commonalities between the properties? I mean, you obviously don't have a big, thick book of brand standards like a Hilton, but what does a Bob W location need to tick all the boxes and be incorporated into your portfolio?
Yeah, well, our book isn't as long as Hilton, but we do have a 160-page brand standard book. So we do have a lot. Now, we have a lot more flexibility because as a business model, we don't take shared spaces. Again, we bring the neighborhood we have services: breakfast, gym, parking, early check-ins, late checkouts, automated upgrades, etc. But they're all available through the app, through the marketplace. So we don't actually, our business model is that every single square meter makes money, as in is rentable apartments. Yet it doesn't feel like a limited service hotel, quite the opposite. Bob is there for you and you've got this marketplace. So from that perspective, sorry, I forgot the question. Can you say?
Yeah, I'm just intrigued that you're in a lot of different locations, and
so what's the similarity?
Physical product, but what do they have to have in common?
So yes, so we're not reliant on these shared spaces. So that gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of the properties that we go for, whether that's apart hotel conversions, office conversions, greenfield, brownfield, etc., new builds. And yet, we still have to recognize that we are a quality consolidator that's bringing a standard to a sector of the industry that does not have standards. So it's important to us to have those standards, and we really live by it. So a big part of that is the promise. And what is the promise? The promise, of course, is that you have this local authenticity. You have the utilities and amenities that you would always expect to. So we're very keen on having the same amenities and utilities, same base build quality red lines. We're able to be flexible in other stuff, but not in other things. Like we still want the double glazed windows and the heating and water pressures and all these things need to reach a certain standard. Of course, our stock has more variance, but when there is variance, it's about being honest to the customer, what you're actually getting versus not getting, because if not, then it's just a hit or miss Airbnb, that it's good in one place and bad in another. So with a Bob W, the experience is always the same in terms of the digital check-in, the physical check-in, in terms of the utilities and amenities and the promises that's delivered, the Bob W extras, the marketplace. We have a gym in every single property. Actually, they're not in the property, but they're within 500 meters, 600 yards of the property itself. We have those standards on offer. So again, with the Bob W, you know what you get, yet shortage looks like shortage. And Helsinki looks like Helsinki. And we're able to do that in a scalable way, 280 items in the studio, 240 copy paste, but the last 40 tell an outsized story of that neighborhood, of local artists, local furniture brands, local ceramists doing the coffee cups for us, etc. So that we satisfy the modern travelers of needs of living like a local and getting an authentic experience. So I would say, in short, whilst we have variance, we have a very clear thin red line of what is the offering and what's the utilities and amenities that you're going to get in this property. And the entry experience and the service experience is 100% the same every time, which will blow you away 100% of the time.
Okay, thank you, Niko. I'm quite interested to find out, as I said, we've got some quite diverse brands here. I'm quite interested to find out who is your core target, your core customer demographic since you opened, and is it who you expected when you launched the brand? Chris, do you want to kick off with that one?
Yeah, thanks, George. It's a great question. I mean, with us, we always knew there was going to be a slight variance because, I mean, we run the traditional kind of hotel brands. I say traditional, we don't like to think our brands are traditional, but for the sense of the two differences between service departments and hotels, traditional hotel brands we've been running. We know that market quite well. A lot of our brands are city center based. We don't focus really on resorts, so we really do know our customer base quite well. But we knew when we launched down West London, in particular being our first location, that there was going to be variances in that guest. Some of the brand fundamentals of kind of what we were proposing, you know, just for example, being pet friendly, and knowing, you know, it's more appealing to people, almost like a home away from home, as opposed to necessarily, you know, the hotel product, that we were going to get a bit of a different guest mix. So with us, kind of with the brand, when we put it out there, we knew we were targeting more of a modern, conscious traveler, people obviously that do care, you know, and are quite conscious about, you know, how they travel, because there's so many options out there in the market. Especially in a market, you know, like London, you know, you really have to understand kind of these guests that are traveling and looking to stay longer periods. You almost put yourself in that position, you know, you're away from home. You start to miss things that, you know, make it feel like home. So then we kind of reverse engineered that and thought, okay, well, if we're, you know, trying to essentially recreate a bit of home, but also bring in the experience of the local kind of area and community, because ultimately that's, you know, why people are traveling. They want to experience a bit of kind of where they are and have a bit of home. How do we do that? So we very much, you know, even, you know, further to Niko's point, you know, instead of just focusing on what we have in the building, how can we connect partners in the area and utilize services and well-known partners in the area to really make that experience custom and unique? You know, for example, yes, we have a gym on site at the Dorset and down by Dorset, but we've partnered with, you know, Gym Box down the way at Westfields. You know, we've partnered with, you know, Yoga West down the way for a unique yoga experience, all within the general proximity of the hotel to allow our guests that kind of custom choice and appeal to a wider audience. Because nowadays, you know, the traditional, say, and I'm using the hotel gym as an example, you know, it's usually a standard offering. Some people really enjoy doing classes. Other people enjoy, you know, going, doing yoga. And how do we give an offering to all of them without kind of trying to do it all in-house ourselves? So really kind of understanding that the people and audience that we are attracting are from diverse areas. They have different wants, different needs. They're staying for an extended period, and they want a bit of kind of what they do at home with us whilst they travel.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Chris. Martin, you're on the other side of town from Shepherd's Bush. Is your customer base, are there any surprises in there from when you drew up your business plan?
Look, you know, it's difficult when you start from scratch. You have a desire in terms of what you're looking to achieve, but fundamentally, the only way you can develop this is to build trust with consumers. You know, we started with zero. You know, nobody knew who we were. The product wasn't known. You know, we're in quite an edgy location. You know, the streetscape is very specific. If people know Commercial Road, I love that area. I mean, I love the community. There's so much to offer. But you know, if you're new into London, you don't really know London that well. You know, you're 10 minutes from, you know, the Aldgate kind of area as a walk, maybe 7.5 minutes, but it's still 7.5 minutes of, you know, of raw London. So in terms of developing our core client base, we looked at price. You know, we said, okay, where are we going to position ourselves? We knew if you go to a level, you'll attract the wrong type of clientele, and equally, if you push it too high, then you're going to disappoint people. So we knew what our offer was, and we had an expectation in terms of the business plan, and it's really worked. We've hit that level. We're comfortable with the customer feedback. You know, Niko mentioned our reviews over 12 months. I follow them closely because fundamentally that's how you learn. You'll always have a guest who complains about the size of the room, but you can't change that. What you can do is improve the offers that you have. Our tech enables people to enjoy the space as I described, you know, in terms of that arrival experience. We are flexible in terms of how we allow people to use the property, check in, check out. I'm intrigued by the algorithm, and I'm looking forward to catching up with Niko in terms of how that works. But we've also gone further in terms of sustainability. You know, we do push ourselves in relation to, you know, we're very high rating BREEAM Excellent building. You know, we've got the highest rating EPC. You know, we use air source heat pumps, PV. We've developed a rooftop garden, to launch. We have a gym, which we haven't launched yet because of COVID, and we want to get it right. But it really was that kind of price positioning and building the trust that was key for us. And I feel like we've hit that level.
And given where you are geographically, do you have a fairly neat split between business customers in the week and leisure at the weekend, or is it more complex than that?
No, it's very simple. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Very much. You know, you get your leisure guests midweek, but tend to find, you know, we have an average 3 to 4 night stay on the corporate side. And very much on the leisure side, we've tried to work it on, you know, minimum room night stay. But again, I like to give flexibility. Obviously, we've got a business model to work. We only have it's a small, you know, in terms of inventory, it's only small, so we can manage it well. And again, we're starting to get to know the repeat customers. We've had a heavy reliance on the kind of OTAs you'd expect from a standing start. Yeah. And now I'm trying to convert that into more of a community, which is quite difficult, you know, for a new brand. But that's what we're really trying to put all of our energy in at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Ed, in terms of your customer base, I mean, Martin there mentioned they were heavily reliant on OTAs to start with. Have there been any surprises in who's using your service, and how do you access these people who are more in the kind of longer stay relocation sort of project market?
Yeah, good questions. So when we were originally starting off, so like I mentioned, my co-founder and I, we had been sort of working in different locations around the world and saw this need both with us and some of our customers at the time, where people didn't have great options for medium and longer term furnished housing. And originally we were thinking we would target the market that was sort of middle income professionals, maybe slightly below the, you know, classic like a McKinsey type consultant or something, because the highest end we figured is reasonably well served by the existing corporate housing market, but the sort of middle income market didn't have great options. And part of that, we believe, is because the traditional corporate housing market is quite capital intensive, right? You have to take long-term leases on units and buy lots of furniture and whatnot. And so it ends up serving a pretty limited high-end part of the market. And so what's been great to see is like one good example customer segment is construction companies that we weren't expecting originally, where a while back we started getting different customers. It might be an admin who has a work crew, working on building a new hotel or whatnot. And then over time, we've seen, the same companies coming back over and over. Now we've had some customers who have booked, housing entire teams across different cities in different locations, booking in total hundreds of thousands of dollars in bookings with us over time, just because we offer lots of different options to them. It's quite flexible. People can actually customize their setups on demand, and so are a great match for them. In addition to that, another interesting customer segment, I think, has been some large multinational companies or people working for them, where this past summer, we started testing Seattle as a market for us. And very quickly, we got several Amazon interns who booked with us. And so kind of surprising that even companies as big as Amazon, don't have go-to providers and whatnot. And even in their core market of Seattle, we're able to provide great options to them and house several of their employees. Likewise, a while back, we had someone from India working for Oracle who was doing a training assignment in Atlanta, and they ended up booking with us in Atlanta and then referring several of their other employees to us at Oracle. And so even companies like Amazon and Oracle, don't have go-to providers, and because we offer lots of different options and it's customizable, it's all professionally managed. We're a great option to sort of a wide swath of different types of professionals.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. The construction piece is an interesting one because those guys didn't stop over the pandemic, and I think they were one of the main reasons behind the extended stay hotel sector doing so well over the period as well.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, great observation. That was something where we started just before COVID, and when COVID hit, I think we're quite thankful that we've had a pretty asset-light model from day one. So like I said, people with more capital-intensive models where they had long-term leases and so on, they got hit pretty hard. But because we have an asset-light model, we were okay. And then construction companies in particular were a very good customer segment for us during that time. And like I said, they've continued to book with us since then, in different cities and so on.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Let's talk about growth plans then. Chris, what's the rollout plan for DAO? Now you've got the first couple open and you can fine tune the model and and learn from what you've seen in those first two trading properties.
Yeah, the growth plan. Well, we're already in the process of building our third one, and that's going to be in North London. So I guess that alludes to the fact that it's a great market to be in. We're seeing the initial results come in, and it's the numbers are very positive. The brand has been well received. In North London, we are in Hornsey. Actually, we're in charge of kind of the town hall redevelopment there. So we're doing, it's kind of a multifaceted project where we're doing residential, and then in the town hall itself, we're having a 68 key DAO by Dorset. But in the rest of the town hall has co-working space and arts and event center, various food and beverage outlets as well. So it's really kind of a multifaceted project, and in a unique area of London as well. It's obviously a bit more residential. It's not as close to, say, your corporate. So we're expecting a bit of a different segmentation mix there, but there is nothing really like it in the area. So we do see an opportunity. And then as we start to look long term, in the next few years, we've already identified some other markets in Asia that we most likely will be expanding the brand to. We have a foothold in obviously China, Australia, as well as another big market for us, where we're expanding. We have about 8 Dorsets and other brands we're currently building. So Dow is another big brand for us that we'll be looking at expanding.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Niko, you've obviously got a fair bit of momentum in terms of your growth. What do you think has enabled you to make such traction with what is presumably quite a large and varied owner base? What is it that you think has allowed you to grow at the speed that you have?
Well, I think, we have built an engine that can scale, and that means that the 100th property can run as smoothly as the first one. And of course, technology is on the base of it, but we've managed to stabilize 16 properties. We've averaged like 2.88 months to stabilize. Now, I know the hotel industry puts usually a 2-year view on stabilizing the rates. We're able to run a whole building with 1 FTE, 1 full-time equivalent. So just our, we of the equivalent old school apart hotel or hotel, we have about 1/10 of the employee base, operationally speaking. So we're just able to be a heck of a lot lighter on the load, a lot more profitable, and a lot more profitable quickly. And then that has then, of course, brought trust to the landlords that, hey, these guys run 5 markets. Every single market is profitable despite their fairly short tenure in those markets, despite the fact that it was pandemic and we ran profitably in 2021 as well. And as a result of that, in a way, the floodgates has opened from that perspective. And, our interest is to be the brand that defines this new category of hospitality. Let's call it what you get short stay experience on steroids. First on a pan-European scale and then on a global scale. So I think our focus is in the next 2 years, Europe, and whilst we start making inroads towards Asia and the Americas and Middle East and what have you. So, but I think ultimately we just are able to give a very compelling offering for the landlords, where we can show that the proof is in the pudding that it works. And that means that we can comfortably pay market rate, yet give confidence to the landlords that we can not only pay our rent but have our keep as well. And that's why we do a mix of management agreements and as well as leases. So that's probably the answer.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Niko. Martin, what are your plans? Are you going to stay focused on London, or are you going to look further afield? And will you keep the OpCo and PropCo under the same ownership as you grow?
Yeah, the plan is to grow within London. To launch a brand is not easy from a standing start. And I feel London's one of the markets globally that you can actually achieve that. So we call this Aptel East. We're planning Aptel West, North and South. We've already acquired a site and we're working through planning. It'll be a bit bigger. We're looking at up to around 70 units in the next property. We'll work through the planning process and then move on to site 3, site 4. Really focusing on London to develop in London first. And keep the same structure. Buy the site, even buy it unconditionally, work the planning. We've been very good at getting consents in London over the past 20 years. So we're comfortable with most local authorities. We know the constraints of what they're looking for these days. So we've got a good track record in London. So build London, keep the structure, and then decide what's the next step.
And are you ideally looking for new build opportunities, or are you happy to convert existing assets?
The next one's going to be new build, ground up again. And there's no reason why we can't work with the refurbishment of an existing building.
Yeah.
There's just specific constraints which make it more difficult in terms of health and safety, etc., which is becoming more, you know, it should be. It's becoming more and more evident in terms of, you know, how you actually deal with these things like fire safety, etc. So that's something we're really conscious of as well for our guests. As I said, you know, sustainability of the building, make it as efficient as possible, and you can do that through new build. Conversion is a little bit more problematic.
Yeah. Okay. Ed, tell us about your growth plans, because you've got quite a hefty presence across the US now. Are you looking to expand beyond the US, or have you still got more markets to conquer there first?
Yeah, thanks. So US is a big market, so we're definitely focused here for sort of the near and medium term. I guess just to give kind of an overview of where we are today. So like you mentioned, so we have offerings sort of coast to coast across the US. We've hosted customers at, it's probably in the sort of hundreds in terms of different properties across the US. And we're focused with our marketing in sort of a core number of cities, about a dozen or so in the US today. But taking a step back, you know, ultimately we see the opportunity to offer this, you know, across the US and around the world. And really what we want to be able to do is, you know, the ultimate vision is you typically have sort of short-term stays today that are furnished like an Airbnb and, you know, a lot of other types of corporate housing, and then long-term unfurnished stays. But we want to provide a third way where whether it's a company or an individual, if you're looking for a place for a few months, a year or longer, you can pick from any place that's normally unfurnished, whether it's an apartment or a home or what have you. And you can pick the place you want in the city you want, customize it the way you want with the, you know, if you want an extra bed or you want an extra TV in a room, just, you know, click and choose the options you want, and then it's ready for you essentially on demand. So that's sort of the ultimate vision, and we see a huge opportunity for that, you know, both in the US and around the world.
Great, thanks, Ed. I'm conscious that we're coming to the end of our hour, so I'm going to combine two questions in one here, and we're going to have to keep the answers fairly snappy. What have been the biggest challenges you faced in launching and growing your respective brands, and where do you see the brands in 5 years' time? Let's start with you, please, Chris.
Thanks, George. I think probably the biggest challenge for us from a owner developer side has obviously been the supply chain. There's delays in supply chain like crazy right now, and it's not getting better. So that's delayed projects massively. And then just from an operations standpoint and I think it's across the industry is resources and staffing, you know, finding enough people, the right people to come in and give the service that we expect for our guests. And there is no quick fix to that. So obviously exploring technology solutions is the next best bet for us. So that's probably been the two biggest challenges for us.
And in 5 years from now, how many properties do you see open under the Dow by Dorset brand?
It's much easier for us to open a Dow brand versus a traditional hotel. When we look at, you know, you were discussing conversions before, you know, if, for example, we take over an existing asset and we convert it, you know, if you take over an existing apartment building, the actual requirement to bring it up to speed is much easier than, say, doing a traditional hotel, 4-star hotel, where you have to have all the F&B, the various different restaurants and all of this in-house. Having, you know, accommodation focused that you work with then partners in the area makes it much easier for us. So we are looking to expand quite rapidly with quite a few openings in the next few years.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris. Niko, biggest challenges you're facing, and where do you see Bob W in 5 years' time?
Biggest challenges historically has been convincing landlords that what does this new company, can you trust them with the properties? And I think 2022 has been really shown how we've started to win this part to it by being the most sustainable player on the market. We're first international climate neutral hospitality provider, and have just doing the things from bottom up the right way, but also obviously being able to show the financials and the numbers across multiple markets. That's starting to bring trust to the landlords. So I'd say that's been the largest challenge. And 5 years from now, people are going to be, well, I think we touched upon this already. People are going to be like, hey, should we grab a hotel or a random Airbnb, or should we grab a Bob? And Bob is going to be that brand synonymous with this new category, hospitality, and and be the bearer of that standard in Europe and with inroads to the other continents.
Mm-hmm. And just quickly, Niko, we've got a question here from Richard Mayuski, who wants to know where the name Bob W come from. I know, but I think it's great that you tell him yourself.
Well, it's best of both worlds. So it was always our ethos to best of the hotel, best of the short stay rental experience, aka what us consumers call Airbnbs, and we were trying to find all sorts of Nordic names and Viking names because I guess it's quite in right now. But it all sounded naff and hard to pronounce. And somebody said, you know, this mantra you guys keep repeating, this best of both worlds. It actually, if it turned it into an acronym, it sounds like a host, Bob W. And turns out the Bob W is the best host ever. So we're happy to have him on board.
Great stuff. Rich has just replied that Haaland would be a great name, but we won't get into that. Martin, what are the biggest challenges you're facing? I guess on the construction side, similar to what Chris has mentioned, and how many properties would you like to have open in 5 years' time?
Yeah, I mean, they're different. You know, we, as mentioned, this has been a real challenge building through COVID, and it's going to continue for the foreseeable. Also, just converting so that we can start to develop our own community and get direct bookings, which again is a challenge for everybody. But that, from a standing start, has been our main focus. The 5-year plan really to cover London. That's really the ambition. And then, within that period to start to determine what the next growth step would be. But within 5 years, if we've covered all points of the compass in London, I think we'll have done well.
So we might have an Aptel northeast.
Correct. Yeah.
So we're gonna have to get that granular.
Just keep going. Yeah.
Okay. And finally, Ed, same questions to you, just briefly, please.
Yep. Yes. So I'd say it's been one of the tougher things is just, since we're offering a bit of a new concept, it takes a bit of teaching since people may understand sort of typical short-term rentals and places are unfurnished, but we're essentially, furnishing places on demand and for this sort of medium and longer term market. So it's a bit of education. So, it helps to do things like this to help educate, both the customers and the properties. Thanks.
Great stuff. Thanks, Ed. Thank you all, guys. It's been a really interesting conversation. We have posted the LinkedIn profiles for all our speakers today in the chat. So if you want to carry on the conversations with any of them, then please do, by all means. Just want to show a couple of quick slides before we wrap up. So the next Service Department News webinar is called The Investment Landscape, and that is going to be on November the 4th. At 2 p.m. I don't think it will be BST, actually. I think the clocks will have gone back by then, but it's definitely November the 4th. You can register for that using the link that's in the chat. Just wanted to quickly tell you about a great event that we run annually called Recharge. It takes place in a different European city every year, and in January we will be in Lisbon, which I'm very much looking forward to. Again, there should be a link in the chat if you would like to find out more about Recharge. If you'd like to work with us, maybe sponsor a webinar series, one of our live events or one of our awards programs, please get in touch with my colleague Katie, whose details are there and also in the chat. And thanks for watching. We're going to leave the session open for a couple of minutes with a countdown clock because there's quite a lot of info in the chat that you can make notes from. If you're not already following us on the social channels you can see there, please do. We'd love to see you. Thanks ever so much to Niko, to Martin, to Chris and to Ed for a great conversation today. Thanks to you all for watching, and I'll see you hopefully on November the 4th. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.